Africa is one of the worst hit continents with climate change impact. Now the continent seeks to lead one of the global institutions on climate change, a case of you can't shave somebody's head in his absence. And our series on agenda setting for the new administration in Africa's biggest economy, Nigeria, is continuing. And I am Charles Alpha, welcoming you to Africa Weekly. Africa is eyeing the chairmanship of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, through its candidate Deborah Roberts of South Africa. If elected, Professor Roberts will become the first woman and from Africa to chair the IPCC in the organization's history.
Africa is on record to be one of the most affected continents from the effects of climate change. The situation is worsened by the lack of representation in positions of decision-making at the international level. But this perhaps is likely to change with the nomination of South Africa's climate change scientist for the top position of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC.
This is really the decade of action. This is the time where global society has said we've fundamentally got to act now in the next years to change the future of our planet and the future of our society, to put us onto a more sustainable development path, to create greater equity and justice in society. So it's a period where we need to do things.
Professor Deborah Roberts will be looking to be deputized by another African, Tanzania's IPCC focal point, Ladislas Changa.
There are issues that we would really like to strengthen. First of all, our participation in the process as people from developing world, and particularly in Africa, is less. So we are calling for enhanced participation.
And the Zambia Climate Change Network is hopeful of Africa's effective representation at the intergovernmental level. Network Acting National Coordinator Lydia Chibambo has also urged Zambia to strengthen its climate change research systems.
We really need to do a lot of research when it comes to climate change, because this is now what will speak in terms of what evidence are we bringing forth as a country. So we need a lot of packaging also of our indigenous knowledge. We know we have a lot of knowledge out there in our rural communities in terms of how they've been mitigating and also adapting when it comes to climate change.
Professor Roberts, a renowned scientist and practitioner, brings over 30 years of experience in the field and is the current co-chair of the IPCC's Working Group 2 on impacts, adaptation and vulnerability.
And Nigeria marked Democracy Day during the week with a firm reminder on the citizens and how much struggle had gone into winning and sustaining the nation's democracy. Nigerians in Sao Tome and Principe were not left out of the celebration, where the Nigerian ambassador to that country, Ambassador Gambo Yusuf, said Nigeria's unity is a major tool towards its national growth and development, and so must be taken serious down to the individual level. He said this in an event organized to celebrate Nigeria's Democracy Day in Sao Tome and Principe. The ambassador reiterated that though
we have diversity, we have over 400 ethnic groups in Nigeria. Let us have more unity. Let us forget about our ethnicity. Let us forget about our religious difference. Let us think of ourselves as Nigerians. Let us unite together to move our country forward. Once we pray for that and once we get that, I'm telling you, the sky will not be our limit. The sky will be the beginning of our journey.
What matters most to all of us is Nigeria. We have the obligation to be loyal to our country, irrespective of our political, religious, and social differences. I urge you all to remain steadfast in our nation's democracy. We must therefore remain in one family and work together to defend and uphold our beloved country.
Now, Now, the new president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has made good his promise to introduce students' loan scheme as one of the reforms of his administration in the education sector. Now, how much impact can this make, and other reforms needed to revamp the sector? We are now being joined by the Vice Chancellor of Edo State University, Uzwairu, Prof. Oluyo. Professor Emmanuel Aluyo joins me now from the University of Edo State to talk more on the issue on the ground. Professor, we want to say thank you very much for joining us on Africa Weekly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, as the new administration settles in, what kind of reforms would you like to see happen in the education sector?
Thank you very much. Let me first of all appreciate you for inviting me to make my thoughts known on educational reforms and the new administration.
You're welcome.
As you well know, the educational ecosystem consists of primary, secondary, and of course tertiary education. I'll probably be talking more on the tertiary education, being that is where I'm presently offering my services.
That's right.
So, but before that, I'll say that so that one would not say so many things, I would like to anchor my presentation on 4 key areas that I think the new administration should make impacts that will be positive for our country. One is civic education.
Okay.
Civic education necessarily should be, there should be a little more concerted effort in teaching civic education in our primary and secondary schools, with a little more emphasis on ethical values, building patriotism in our young and upcoming citizens.
All right.
Number 2 is vocational education. Over time, the educational system, the government had introduced a policy of the 6334 system of education, which hasn't quite delivered on its mandate. I think that there's a need for this government to revisit the 6334 system of education, look at it again, and tinker with it. The idea was to ensure that the 6 and the first 3 part of the 6334 system is compulsory and is free, and that by the time the student finishes junior secondary school, the student should be able to, even if it doesn't go further, should be able to be meaningful to society. That would essentially have required that at the junior secondary school and then also at the senior secondary school, vocational skills are taught to the students, where a student can pick a particular vocation and be specialist at it, whether he then goes on to tertiary education or not, at least he can put food on his table. There's a necessity for us to emphasize on skills for our citizens, and then also dignify manual labor. That is to say, if we work, no matter the kind of work you do, provided that work puts food on your table, then that work is dignified. Right. Whether it is driving, whether it is styling, whether it is cake baking, whether it is electrical works, whether it is hairdressing or fashion designing or hairstyling as they call it, whatever. Once you have that skill, you are sure that you can put food on your table. Then even if you don't go further in your education, you are not a menace to society.
Okay.
Now
Right.
the
Okay.
third part, so I said four parts
Go
I wanted to
ahead.
talk
Go
about.
ahead, please.
The third part is that there should be a conscious effort by our government to make teaching a dignified vocation. That is to say that the best actually amongst us should be the teachers of our children. And the only way we can get the best to be the teachers of our children would be to take a look again at our NCE, National Certificate for Education, I believe. Look at how we train our teachers. Today, the best students going into higher institutions go to the universities, then the polytechnics, then the colleges of education. To change that mindset, the government will probably need to reward those who choose to go to the colleges of education. If today, government decides that everybody who goes to college of education, first of all, the college of education is free, and as you enroll into a college of education, you get paid, even if it is 50,000 naira a month. You will find that, particularly for those who are indigent amongst us, who want to go to acquire tertiary education, who cannot afford it, they'll go to the college of education, not because they are not good enough, but because they need, then of course, make a conscious effort to pay teachers, those who teach in primary schools, and then those who teach in secondary schools, probably better than those who teach in the university, so that we can then, have the people who love teaching as a vocation, not just because they don't have any other thing to do. That is the third. The fourth one is funding of research. This is with regard to tertiary education. Of course, tertiary education should not just be about getting to the classroom, you teach the students, and after that, student acquires a certificate and then goes on. The main value of tertiary education should be research. Government must make a conscious effort to fund research. Yes, TETFund is doing some things, TETFund is doing some things, but a lot more can be done. Of course, one needs to acknowledge the law that has just been signed by the president about loans for indigents, where there is still a lot that needs to be done to be able to make that law functional, to be able to make that law deliver on. But more important than that, to my mind, is that government must fund research. Government must encourage Nigerians to fund research. Government must encourage companies, those who have money, to fund research in Nigeria.
Okay.
And as you fund research, it will enable, the frontiers of education to open up across the whole country.
All right, now,
those are my initial thoughts.
All right,
yes.
so thoughts, very valid thoughts there, I would say. But again, you've raised so many points, from what you've said. But again, if I need to take you back to, one of those points, you raised, talking about development of skills, on the part of either the students or the lecturers. Towards the end of your comments, you briefly talked about the loan or credit for education that has been approved by Mr. President. Now, what impact can this make, on the education sector, particularly for the students, as it has to do with the development of skills that you were talking about?
In Nigeria today, we have the BVN, we have, in digital world today, biometrics. Every single Nigerian with the cashless, also put in place cashless system, must use the banking system, which means that just by access to the biometrics of any Nigerian today, you can access the person's BVN and you can make the person anathema to the financial sector. So I think that the requirements should be reduced to just an ability to prove that the person is actually indigent in the first place, and then secondly, the BVN or the biometrics of such an individual. And that will assure that any day the person gets enough money to put into the banking sector, the loan can be repaid.
All right.
For me, that should be sufficient enough requirement to be able to access the loan. That's number one. Number two, to say that once your parent can access more than 500,000 naira in a year, then you don't qualify for the loan. Well, first of all, how much is the loan, or how much should the student require? What if my parent is not willing to sponsor my education? That automatically makes me indigent. So again, it is that aspect of it again is to, but the first thing is to commend the president for signing such a bill into law. It is something that is needed in our system. It will shock you that even for the levels of fees that are paid in federal universities, which are the lowest anybody can find, which is more akin to free education actually, there are still persons who cannot afford those fees. And then if you make loans available, you will find that the options available to Nigerians will then be more. If I can't go to a federal university, I can go to a state university. If I can't go to a state university, I can go to a private university, and funds won't be a barrier so long as I can access a loan. So whether the federal university is free or not, I can still go to the institution of my choice. So that is where, again, there should be no limit to the amount of one should be able to access as a loan, so long as the money can be paid directly to the institution and it is being paid for the education of the indigent student, and the student can acquire education of choice. You will find that making such a loan available will also open up the educational system. It will open, more students will opt to go to private universities. As you know, there are more than 250 universities in Nigeria today, and only less than 50 are federal universities. So the loan scheme is a very welcome development, but I think that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to review it, to make it more.
So now, Prof, just quickly now before I let you go, I know you've made quite a number of points on that, but now how is your university now using the online education, to enhance teaching? Just briefly before we leave here.
Yeah, in Edo State University, we pride ourselves as being the first university in Nigeria to have gotten on the Canvas learning management system.
Okay.
But you see, online education, if you call it, is supposed to enhance. It's supposed to enhance the both the quality and the means of delivery of education to, it's technology age. All world-class universities have learning management systems. So, but it is not to do away with the classroom setting where the lecturer interacts with the student face to face. It is to complement it.
All right.
You can give assignments, you can give quizzes, so without necessarily having the students in the classroom, you can still continue interaction with the students. If you like, call it digital education. Right. So again, it helps you to monitor the availability of the students. You know, it enables for our Canvas learning management system to mean that once you put information on the system, parents can also monitor the performance of their wards. Are they in class? Are they not in class? How well are they doing? Did they do their assignments? Did they do? So there's a lot encompassed in having a very functional learning management system. And indeed, all universities should have functional learning management system. Well, it is one thing to have it, it's another to actually also make it functional.
All right, it's okay.
So, but it is not to do away with the interaction, physical interaction that should go. For example, what we are doing now is online. I'm in Yamo, Zare, and I'm talking to you in Abuja.
Yeah.
So, but you agree with me that there's some quality that is lost by the fact that we are not sitting across a table in the same room.
That's right.
So yes, it's sometimes convenience, but it is not to do away with face-to-face physical contact.
It's all right. Thank you very much, Prof. We do understand how you're setting the pace there. We do also desire that other universities will, to their parts. Thank you very much for finding time to talk to us on Africa Weekly. The Vice Chancellor of Edo State University, Professor Aluyo. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
So that's our package this week. Thanks for watching. I am Charles Alpha.